Under the same moon, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. And how do we stand in love's pure might? Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. Now here we stand in love's pure might.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World, the weekly legal review. Global tensions have surpassed anything we've probably seen in our lifetimes, especially when it comes to the chaos and so many things happening near and far. A lot of people are concerned about the economy, and what does this mean? What's happening out in the Middle East? Here in America, the President of the United States has said repeatedly that prices are going down and that the stock market is booming. But what does it mean when we actually look at the actual numbers? Is that accurate? Well, we're going to get into that tonight, and we're going to do so from a high level with the criminal defense attorney, right? We're all familiar with. His name is Calvin Johnson. We're going to have him on the show as we do weekly to help us really unpack and understand what's happening from a legal perspective. Let's welcome on none other than Calvin Johnson. Calvin, how are you?
And how you doing today, Mel? What's going on, man? Nice to have you back. Nice to be here again, once again, on the weekly legal review. You have to excuse my lighting. We've had some technical difficulties, but we're going to be fine.
All right, very good. So a lot has happened over the last week. What do you think in regards to the president came out this week and he talked about how he solved 8 to 9 wars. Prices are down. The stock market is the highest that we've seen it. But a lot of people are pressing back because they say, well, that's not the accurate truth. What do you think in regards? Why are we getting a different message from the president versus the media?
You know, that's not the truth. And I think that's where a lot of us have had our problems with the president. There are times when he does things great and everything's going fine. But there are also times where we know it's clearly showing that things are not going well. I went to the gas station the other day, and I remember about 6 weeks ago, I paid $2.49 for a gallon. Yesterday, I paid $3.89 for a gallon of gas. And so you can't fool people with real numbers. I mean, real numbers are there. The economy is not doing well. Everything's kind of unstable because of this war. Oil prices are going up. Therefore, gas prices are going up. Therefore, the cost of living is going up. Think about the truckers and the people that drive Uber. They're having to pay for a lot more gas now. And then that is being passed down to just the regular citizens. So we're having a serious issue in America right now. And sometimes with this president, when things don't go well, he tries to paint a different picture. And I think America has kind of caught on to that.
The president said that this is only a temporary situation. And so as soon as this is over, things will get back to normal with the prices and the stock market.
The concern for that is it going to get back to normal? What is going to be normal? And when is this going to be over? I think that you have a country in Iran that's fighting for its existence. And I don't foresee them letting anything happen and be over quickly. Even though America is mighty and strong, I would imagine that country has planned for years with this possibility happening. And so they're going to be extremely strategic in doing what they're doing, and they're not going to be taken out quickly.
Okay, Marissa says the president is delusional. He thinks that because he is stealing our money, he has plenty to spend. That is the economy. It's good. What do you think?
And that's another concern that we're having in America. While we go to war and spend billions of dollars on war, We had somebody like James Talarico come down here to the Dallas area, and there's a part of the Dallas area that does not have running water. And so he talked about, while we're spending $5 billion across seas, we have a place in the fourth largest metropolitan area, a part of the county that does not have running water. So when you start talking about that, and then you look at what Christy Nome was accused of doing, which is wasting $220 million of taxpayer dollars on some advertising, as well as a lot of money spent on a private jet or several private jets, or to renovate them, and use these American dollars to do so. People are not with that. They're looking at the fact that this administration was supposed to drain the swamp, and now they become the swamp, and now they become even the dirtier swamp because of the war, as well as some of the overspending that's happening inside this administration with no accountability. So people are having some issues.
Okay, could you really, Joe, help us understand why would the president say the prices are going down if we see at the pumps gas is actually going up and groceries? Do you think it's more of a campaign strategy? Do you think he's trying to ease the fears of the American people? What do you think?
I think he is trying to ease the fears of the American people because we know the truth. We're going to the store. Like I said, I went to put gas in the car a couple of days ago, and I spent $3.89 a gallon, and 6 weeks ago it was $2.49 a gallon. That's not a price decrease. It's common sense. I mean, you can't fool us. People that are buying gas every day, they're buying groceries every day, they're paying bills every day. They know they're paying bills. They know that everything's higher, and the president is not being honest with us. I mean, if you want to paint it in a way to where it helps you win an election next time you run or your party runs, I get that, but people are not stupid. 389 is more than 249 last time I checked, and there's no other way to get around it. And then you have the fact that a lot of people think he took over Venezuela and he's going at Iran for the oil, because the oil companies are going to benefit because they can actually give us less oil for more money, and they're going to make a gazillion dollars because of it.
Now, Calvin, as a criminal defense attorney, I know you have to be a straight shooter with your clients, and I know sometimes we have to have those tough conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to have a tough conversation with you now, and I'm open to whatever you want to say. But the president says basically during his collective speeches over the last week that basically they having all these wars throughout the world, 8 or 9 that he wanted to stop because they were killing, taking the lives of innocent people. And sometimes, like even with Ukraine and Russia, you have 7,000 to 25,000 a month, give or take, right?
Yeah.
So he's saying that, but at the same time, we're now starting a war and taking out innocent people too. How do you understand the conflict?
And see, that's the concern. You know, he told us before that he wasn't going to get us into any more wars, that it was going to be about America first. And then we look up and you look at the tally of what these missiles cost to launch and how much money we're spending. I've been told that some of the missiles that we're launching it's going to cost around $5 billion a day to run this war. And while Iran is actually using these little mini drones that cost about $20,000 a piece to be able to fly against some of the stuff that we're doing. And so when you look at the amount of money that's being spent, the fact that he told us he wasn't going to get us in any more wars, the fact that we are in a war, and the fact that that war is causing prices to come up. I mean, like I said, you're 289 to 249 to 389. Hey man, that's a big jump. Somebody actually said in the comments, that's a 60% price increase on what I'm paying for gas. Think about a trucker who has to put hundreds of gallons of gas to drive across the country. So this war is hurting us, man. And he told us one thing and he's doing another.
Okay. Now let's look at it this way. Over 47 years, as Country Carpenter has mentioned, we've been dealing with Iran. In fact, they've taken many Americans hostage. A lot of Americans have lost their lives due to Iran. Could you say that by the president going after Iran, that he's trying to save the future of the American people?
And this is the thing. Now, I have to be honest. I'm going to give y'all a little bit of a history lesson. For decades, and probably for half a century, oil in Iran was controlled by the British and the Americans. They were being exploited by the British and American oil companies. And what happened when they took hostages back in the late 70s, early 80s was that America had installed this guy called the Shah. And the Shah was very friendly to American and British policies. Iran stepped up and said, listen, it's our oil, it's our country. We're tired of y'all taking advantage of us in the oil. We want to control our own future. We want to control our own oil. America said, no, we're going to keep things how they are. You already have a leader. That's how it's going to be. Well, they started threatening the Shah. The Shah realizes that, hey, they're going to come kill me if I don't get some American help over here. So we came and actually evacuated the Shah. And when we evacuated the Shah, Iran said, hey, he's a criminal. He's not doing what's in the best interest of Iran. We want him back. And when America said no, they took the hostages. So there's a huge story behind why they did what they did. And I'm not excusing Iran in any shape, form, or fashion, but it's just what happened. It's a history lesson. And so when you start thinking about kind of what's happening and our battles with Iran, some of it, a lot of it has been them, but some of it has been us and our policies in terms of the way that we deal with them. Now, don't get me wrong. They're some of the kings of terrorism over there. But if you're going to tell a story, we have to put a historical context on that so that everybody understands that I happen to be a history major, so I know all of this stuff.
With that in mind, a lot of people are saying that Israel is behind this whole action in the Middle East. Is that true, or do you think America is after this for a noble reason?
I think Israel has pushed it for various reasons, that they have had issues with Iran. Of course, religious issues, number one, but number two, they've been battling for years too, and they have been attacking each other for years. They have been going at it for decades upon decades. So when you look at it, part of it is Israel, but part of it is our self-interest. The oil companies are going to make a lot of money. I've even heard that Jared Kushner and some of the other people are making some financial moves that's going to gain them a lot of money based on the fact that we have went to war with Iran at this point. I think some of it is America going in, but I think a lot of it is being pushed by Israel.
Okay. The optimum goal here, I believe, is for a regime change, to get a new regime that's basically more favorable to America. Do you think it's possible?
Once again, I go back to history, right? Why did they remove the Shah? Or why did Iran want the Shah out? Because he was too favorable to American policies. At the end of the day, I want countries to be favorable to us, but they have their own country. They're going to do what's in their best interest, not what's in our best interest. So that being said, I don't see a situation upon which they're going to get a leader that's going to be American friendly. Because I think if they try to get one of those, they're going to, the Iranian people or the high level Iranian government will take them out one way or the other. So I don't think that's even possible at this point, especially when you went in and took out the other leader.
Okay, so Iran basically has its tentacles in the Strait of Hormuz, right? Is it possible, if we do all of this action, let's say it goes on another month, and we still cannot control that strait, which oil is pretty much running the entire world's economy, if we can't get that objective secured, can we win?
And see, that's the concern I have. What is winning? Being able to control the Strait of Hormuz, I don't think they're going to allow that. I think Iran is not only going to attack the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to make it very difficult for the other allied countries that are allied to America to operate. I've heard that they blew up about 5 or 6 of our refueling planes that were on the ground in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia had actually announced itself as neutral, but because they had an American airbase, they had some planes there. Iran attacked them and blew 5 of our planes up that we use for refueling for the longer missions. So when you look at that kind of situation, trying to control the Strait of Hormuz, I don't know if we're going to be able to get there. I mean, it's a very small strait. The weapons that they have can reach to their targets like they need to reach them. And I think that you got oil coming through there, huge ships with huge payloads, and trying to have a war in that zone or try to control that zone is going to be extremely difficult. I don't know if that's going to be attainable at this point.
So, what does this look like going forward now that we know that the Iranians were basically trying to target the West Coast, actually dropping missiles on our soil? What does this look like going forward?
I think we need to be extremely careful. I think that with the innovations of war and some of the things that you can do now that you could not do in the past, let's say uh, you get an Iranian on American soil that has access to some drones, and then he decides to let them go in some of our cities and some of our communities. That's a real possibility now. They don't actually have to be on our coast to be able to do it. They can get somewhere close, fly the drones in, and ergo, we have a bigger problem. I think the way that war is now, I think Mr. Trump and our leadership, our military leadership, they need to make sure that they communicate the way that things are to Mr. Trump. Because what I'm hearing is that Mr. Trump does not read his daily briefings, that he's not as technical as maybe some of the past presidents were. And I think that can be very dangerous when you're looking at a new area of war.
So far, they've sent 2,500 into NARD trying to take control, but can they really pull this off without boots on the ground at a larger scale? Now, keep in mind, Iranians have 1 million foot soldiers.
And see, that's what I'm saying. I think you're gonna have to you have to put boots on the ground. But with that being said, the Iranians probably have been preparing for years for this, so they're going to be extremely strategic about how they use their men. They're going to be extremely strategic about how they use their munitions, and I think that's where we need to be extremely careful with Iran. We consider them a very small country that cannot uh, defend themselves against the might of the American military. But you got to understand the most dangerous animal in the pen is the wounded dog. And they are going to use whatever innovations that they have, whatever they know about the regions, whatever they have learned the last few years to be able to deal with us. And they're getting some help from um, our enemies like Russia and China.
Okay, I'd like to ask everybody to hit the like button, share, subscribe. Also, hit the hearts to really help push the channel. Could you perhaps, Calvin, take a moment and tell everyone who you are, what you do?
My name's Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've been doing criminal defense for the last 24 years. I do state, local, and federal criminal defense. I've been doing that, like I said, for 24 years. I'm also a former city council candidate here in Dallas. And I can be reached one of several ways at the phone number of 214-565-5600. On the website is theywon'tletmeout.com, and my email is attorneycalvindjohnson@gmail.com.
Okay, the foreign minister of Iran basically said, listen, we want you to come and have your boots on the ground. We've been waiting for this for years. We're going to smoke you guys to pieces. What are your thoughts in regards to that?
I think we need to be extremely careful. You're fighting a country that is fighting for its existence. They're not just trying to win a war. They're fighting for a way of life, and they're fighting to exist. And you know that they teach their soldiers that it's honorable to sacrifice your own life in the midst of this war, which means that they will be rewarded in their own heaven by sacrificing themselves and sacrificing their lives in war against America. So we need to be extremely careful about dealing with those people, trying to get boots on the ground in an area, of course, where we have allies and where we fought before. But when you fight somebody on their home court, you don't know what kind of tricks that they have up their sleeve. So this could be very dangerous for us. And it's not just about really winning the war. If you do win the war, what cost is it going to cost the allies? How much is it going to cost Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, some of the other people that we deal with, Qatar? How is it going to? How much is it going to cost them? So you got to start thinking about not just the cost to yourself, but the cost to your allies.
You know, I'm quite concerned. Lately, I've been traveling a lot. I was out in Tucson, Arizona. I just came back from Washington, D.C. By the way, they took down the Trump and Epstein statue, so I wasn't able to get that film. But here's my concern. Recently, we saw with Don Lemon, he went into a church. He ended up getting some federal charges, right?
Mhm.
When I was out in Tucson, Arizona, the sheriff came out and said, listen, we don't want you guys out searching without having a permit. So all of these type of thoughts coming to mind when you're out here boots on the ground. But now we're starting to see with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson says that he could be facing charges because he actually spoke to some Iranians before the war started, and they're trying to put the screws to him. It seems like the media, independent or mainstream, is in hot water.
And this is the problem that you have, and this is something that Mr. Trump needed to think about as well. The information now, it's easy to get information, right? You can talk to people, you can get on the internet, you can get on YouTube. You don't have to be some classified person. You don't have to be some classified news organization. If you look at it, a lot of the private creators and a lot of the private content creators are taking a lead in some of this, as well as some of the people like Tucker Carlson, who broke away from Fox and is doing his own thing with his own kind of network or a different network right now. So you got those issues to deal with. And then those people still have the same contacts as they had when they worked at those major news organizations. So that could be a continued problem as well. They could get into some trouble because if you leak information, if you're having conversations with foreign governments and that foreign government is fighting America, that could be an issue. But with that being said, the Trump administration also kind of has a little loose lips when they're discussing what's happening in this war. And sometimes they give out information that can be very damning to our soldiers in our fight because they give out too much information. If we know the information, then the enemies are going to know that same information. So there's a lot to unpack there, Mel, a whole lot to unpack.
So Donald Trump's brother, Robert, who passed away recently, I think he died around 2020. He used to be a client of mine, right? One of the things he told me about Donald Trump, I don't think many people know, is that he wanted to be in media at some point himself. So if that's true, which I highly believe it came from his brother, why would the president allow the media to take such a hit, knowing how tough it is to get the message out? And he likes to persuade the media himself.
I just think that there are times where when he can't control the media to give the narrative that he wants them to give, sometimes he holds a grudge against them. And I think that's something that can be a continued issue. And that's been something that has been happening a lot because you have him wanting to control that narrative and sometimes not really being able to. So that can be an issue.
So what do you think is going to happen going forward? We're starting to see, we saw recently a reporter in Washington, D.C. get hauled off to jail. Tucker Carlson, if he gets some serious time or even gets arrested, do you think they're trying to discourage reporters and anchors?
I think that they are. I think that we have been accustomed to these norms when it comes to the media, that certain things you can't do to the media. You want to protect their freedom of speech. You want to be able to protect their sources. You want them to be able to speak freely and openly about what they think about war, as well as with some of the information that they get their hands onto. But under this administration, if you speak negative or not in their favor, that's not something that they like or they want.
Okay, I think Tom is making a great point here. Could you address this comment?
The U.S. has no other choice but to get all the objectives completed. Anything of else is a sign of weakness to Russia and China. And I think that's right. What he just said is right. But I think that we put ourselves in a position where we had to, once you made that attack with Israel, you put yourself in a position to where you're not going to be able to back your way out of this. You're going to have a win, and you're going to have a win that is clear and convincing. And what is that going to cost when it comes to American lives? How much is that going to cost to American economy, to the American economy? How much is it going to cost politically to the Republican Party and to the Trump administration moving forward? Those are the things that you're going to have to tally with, but you must win because now you put yourself out there.
Okay. Lisa Page makes a great point. Could you address that?
Controlling the media is authoritarian. Is authoritarian characteristics. I'm sorry, I'm thirsty. That is right. That is completely right. That's what they do. What people will do in these particular situations if you are trying to control the narrative, you have a government like Mr. Trump. It is basically in a situation where he wants to lay down the hammer on any messages that are getting out that he does not approve of.
Okay, very good. Alicia also says because media speaks out against him.
And she's right. And that's the thing. The one thing that we have is actually American media. American media will speak out against Mr. Trump. And they're in a country, one of the few countries where you can actually do that. Go to some of these countries and speak out against their leaders and see if you either A, are alive, or B, still free and not end up in jail, or C, not ended up getting punished for doing so. And so I think that in America, we're extremely lucky to be able to do what we're doing, but I think it is the responsibility of the media when they see something like what's happening with Mr. Trump for them to open their mouths and say something.
When I knock at the door of the Democrats, it seems like nobody's home. Why is that the case?
When you say you knock at the doors of the Democrats, it seems like nobody's home.
There's no distinctive leader.
There isn't a distinctive leader, and I think that that goes back to some of the stuff that I was talking about. There's a lot of people in the Democratic tent. You got blacks, you got Hispanics, you got liberal whites, you got the LGBTQIA community. You got, to a sense, some religious folks that are kind of moderate Democrats. You got some folks that are not religious at all, and they go into their direction. So when you start thinking about all of those types of things that are happening, the tent is very, very big, and it's hard to get a leader that can represent everybody's interests in a tent that's so diverse.
But think about it. Even with the case of Jasmine Crockett, right? She did a good job trying to win, even though she was defeated. But then all of a sudden in the media, right, it comes out that her security guard was killed for fighting with the police. Like, what is going on? This is all bad press stemming around the Democrats.
And see, this is the thing that I talk about when it comes to that. A lot of people use private security when you're dealing with somebody like her and she's out in the campaign, because when you're campaigning, you got to have your own private security. When you're doing your duties as a congressperson, you can get security that's paid for by the government. And what happened in this situation, I don't know if that particular security person was vetted properly, but the thing concerns me, not that somebody was around her that was maybe not supposed to be around her. The fact that it came out not to her, but they decided to go in and arrest the guy without telling her what was going on. And that's the shameful part about it. If you have somebody that you know not supposed to be doing what they're doing, and they're actually guarding somebody from Congress, don't you think you should call that person and tell them, hey, your security is not good, instead of surrounding him and then she finding out a whole nother way? But see, that's where I look at this situation and I say, this is a situation upon which people are playing politics as opposed to really, really getting to the nitty gritty. You had somebody who was not supposed to be around her, and you had local authorities not being willing to tell her that person couldn't be around her. And that is very telling.
Right. I have an associate that's high up in the government, and she's also a Republican. She said that once Donald Trump won, even before he took office, the very next day, they're working on 2028.
Yeah.
And right now, the Democratic Party don't have a clear, distinctive leader, and you need the momentum. How are you going to get the momentum at the last minute to say, here, vote for me, I'll set you free? Why is that the case?
And that's the concern that we have. You have the old guard fighting the new guard, and they're not planning forward enough. They don't plan forward enough, and that's the issue. So when I say they don't plan enough forward thinking, they don't set in place people, situations, in preparation, even for these elections here in Texas. They were voting by precincts in Dallas and Houston, in Dallas and Williamson County, and the local Democratic Party was not ready to make sure that every one of its voters knew where to go. It's simple things like that where the Republican Party has a better infrastructure. They're very forward looking and forward leaning. And the Democrats got to do a better job in that area to catch up with the Republican compadres.
Do you think it has to do with the fact that Donald Trump says, listen, I'm going to do this, 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 whether you like it or not, right? He gathers the people behind him, and then when he gets into office, he does this, this, and this. Do you think that's the difference?
I think that is part of the difference. And then what I think is that they are willing to stay on message. They figure out, hey, we need A, B, and C, and we're going to do A, B, and C no matter what happens. They're
Right.
changing course because somebody gets in their feelings about B being too rough or tough. They're just saying we're going to do A, B, and C, and we're going to do A, B, and C, and it's going to happen, and they do it.
Right, because I saw with Joe Biden, especially with the student loans, I think that was one of the big catalysts with his election, right? But then when he got into office, what we heard at the end of the day is that, oh, Congress is holding him down, holding him down. Whereas with Donald Trump, it appears that he's above Congress and may not even care what Congress think. What do you think?
And that's one of the problems too. He's not respecting the checks and balances. He's not respecting the other two parties. He doesn't respect Congress as well as the judicial branch. And I think that's going to come with a cost. And I think that America is seeing that he doesn't respect those other two branches. And I think some of the things that are happening that they don't like very much. And I think that that's probably going to be one of the reasons why they're kind of catching a little bit of a blue wave right now, because a lot of people are seeing what he's doing and they're thinking that that's dictator behavior. But the Republicans just say, hey, we're focused. He's focused. He's going to do what he says he's going to do, regardless of whether you like it or not. And so there's two very different ways to look at that.
I don't think that Donald Trump really is concerned about the American people. I think he's concerned about his base and growing those numbers. And if he can keep that consistency, I think he feels like he can pretty much make whatever changes he wants to.
And I agree. And Mel, what you just said was like you're wholehearted and being honest. If you didn't vote for him, he don't give two flips about what you think or how you feel or how you're affected. He's more concerned about the people that voted for him, or those people that he can benefit from moving forward. And that's some of the difference I think that's in this particular presidency. The people who did not vote for him feel oppressed. They feel like he is doing everything he can to make their lives harder. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that has not happened in other administrations, but there seems to be a lack of care or empathy for anybody who does not think or feel the way he feels. And I think that's where we're having a problem in this country.
But doesn't the fact that the Democratic Party don't really have like even two or three solid people that are forthcoming that individuals can get behind, do you think that's going to hurt them in the long run to ever retake government again?
I think it's going to hurt them, but I'm going to be honest with you. Some of the stuff that we're seeing right now in terms of Trump and some of the things that he's doing and some of the things that are happening, I don't know if they have to do a lot. They just need to be steady. They need to stay away from those far left ideas that they sometimes try to and put into place. I think they need to get the independents back in line. I do think that they need a clear leader, but I think that this party right now, with the war and some of its overly aggressive immigration policies, I think they're making their own bed to die in if they're not careful. I think the Democrats are going to be fine, but eventually they're going to have to get some strong leaders in place.
So basically, if I understand you correct, you think having men in the women's room and also having such a major effect with these pronouns that at one point you had to say the right pronoun or you could be in hot water. You think all of that took the Democrats too far left?
I think it is, and it's not a situation where we want to discriminate against anybody, any particular person. But I think some of those policies hurt. I've even talked to one of my friends that's LGBTQ, and he even thought that some of the things that the party was doing was pushing too far left, and that's coming from somebody who's gay. And so I think that when we have this conversation, some people will say, "Oh, Calvin, you're being phobic," and it's not. I'm not being phobic. What I'm realizing is that the Republican Party is smart enough to bring these things up, because that will distract certain folks from paying attention to what they're doing over here with the money, to what they're doing with the oil, to what they're doing in tax policy, and what they're doing in taking away their medical care. They can have you focus on some far left bathroom stuff while they do everything else that they want to do. And what happens is, not only is that happening, while the Democratic Party tries to defend the bathroom stuff, the Republicans are saying, see, they're loony over there. We need to bring some normalcy in. And while they're saying bring some normalcy in, they're taking away all of the stuff that you're going to need to be able to survive. So I think that is kind of where things are, and that's the rub.
Okay, Calvin, we lost your camera, so maybe you have to go out and come back in. I'm not sure what happened.
Oh, you can't see me?
No, it's all dark.
Okay, so let me go back out and I'll come back in.
Okay, very good. So it's nice to see we have so many people here today while we're waiting for Calvin to come back in. I'm going to give you guys a landscape of what we're going to be doing going forward. We have quite a few cases coming up this month. We have Nicolas Maduro on, I believe it's March the 26th. So I'll be covering Nicolas Maduro. We also, in June the 8th, we have Luigi Mangione, and that's his state trial. And then his federal trial starts in September the 8th. We have Calvin back. All right.
Can y'all see me now?
Yes, everything is good now.
Oh, great, man, great. Yeah, but like I was saying, there's a lot that you got to think about. I think that right now it's not going to be as much as the Democrats having a particular leader. I think it's going to be more importantly that each of the individual representatives that they have for Congress and the House of Representatives, that they truly understand what their constituents want, and that they truly prioritize certain things, as opposed to the party telling them, hey, you got to support this, you got to support that. Some people are saying, no, we don't want to do that. You need to deal with the issues that you have in your own district and at home, and you need to be able to have the leeway to be able to do that. Sometimes I don't think the Democrats provide that. They really push certain policies, and I think that they got to be careful about doing that moving forward.
Okay, I like Tom's strategy. Could you check out the comments here?
They need a leader that gives Republicans time to reveal skeletons in their closet, scatter the field, and confuse them. I think that's right. I think what you do is get several leaders that are really good in their areas with their groups of people that can speak to those groups of people, and make sure that those particular leaders, galvanize their people to be able to vote. If you have a strong African-American leader, a strong Hispanic leader, maybe that's going to be Tallarico. Maybe somebody that's strong for the LGBTQ people, to those folks. And I think that if you have a bunch of different moving targets, I think you'll be okay.
Okay, Jim makes a great point. Jim says when the whole world is crazy, you need a bully for president, not anybody soft.
I think that is true to a point. And it's not about being soft, but even the bully has to be strategic, because remember, there's a David and Goliath story in the Bible. The bully can't go around just punching people, because sometimes the other person got a slingshot. So you just can't be a bully. You got to be strategic. You got to be smart. You just can't go in there because I'm stronger than you and I'm bigger than you, I'm going to punch you out. What happens when you run into somebody with a damn slingshot and they hit you in the eye and you can't see them anymore? We got to be extremely careful about how much of a bully we are. And then while you're bullying, you still got to use your head, because even the best bully can get beat up. Look what happened to Debo on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Whoever's hitting the hearts, I really do appreciate that. Continue to hit the like button, share, subscribe. Mr. How Hot says Democrats fighting to see who can sell the country out first.
And see, that's the thing. I think that the Democratic Party needs to be careful with some of its immigration policies and some of the softness toward other people that are not Americans, that are not American citizens. And I think that's where a lot of the American citizens were turned off by the Democratic Party the past few years. They feel like they were more concerned about immigration They felt like they were more concerned about other folks. A lot of people felt like the Democratic Party had abandoned the working Americans, the working class, the average people that are just trying to buy houses and cars and send their kids to school. So I think the Democrats need to be extremely careful about how much they kowtow to other countries, and they need to be very careful about their immigration policies. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some people that are going to have to end up getting deported, and that's fine. But the Democrats need to be able to understand that they just can't push that everybody can come over, everybody can stay message and think that that's going to fly with a lot of voters, because I don't think that is. I think what they need to work on is trying to figure out a compassionate way to deal with our immigration problem.
I want to show you two conflicting point of views from the audience. Lisa Page says, seems like our entire political system government is collapsing, right? And then Mr. How Hot says the opposite. He says our system is stronger than ever. Just because you don't agree with it doesn't make it false.
I think it's collapsing, and I agree with the first Ms. Lisa, because we have a president who does not respect the other branches, and we have his own party that fails to be able to be a check and balance to him. And I don't consider this this system working when we have gas that's going to be $4 or $5 a gallon pretty soon. You're going to have a lot of Americans that do not have health care. You got a president who ignores Supreme Court decisions, and who also fails to pay attention to anybody in the legislative branch of the government when he doesn't like what's going on. So when you look at it, that's a concern that I have. As somebody said, if Congress would do their job, then they would deserve respect. And hey, I get that. It's not an easy job to do. I get that, but at the same time, you don't want a dictator in there either. I mean, President Trump is smart. He may be smart in certain areas, but I don't know if he's smart when it comes to trying to tell us that things are cheaper when they're actually more expensive. I don't know how smart he is when it comes to paying attention to the fine details of war. I'm not saying that he's not a smart man. He may be very well smart because he's wealthy. He's figured out a way to be a president, number one, get elected twice, which most people can't do, as well as he's had some success in business, and he still has a lot of money. So I think that you can't say that this president is dumb, but I also think that when it comes to governing and then when it comes to strategically dealing with our military and these military conflicts that we've gotten ourselves into, I don't consider him very smart in that area.
Okay, today we have more people viewing on X or Twitter than we do on YouTube. We want to give a shout out to all the people that are viewing from X. Calvin, can you introduce yourself? Let them know what this is about.
My name is Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I am a criminal defense attorney in Dallas, Texas. I do state, local, and federal criminal defense. I've done that for the last 24 years. I also hold a degree and a double major from Howard Payne University in Brownwood, Texas, in political science and history. And I hold a law degree from St. School of Law, as well as I also went to the High School for Public Services, Government and Law, the law magnet here in Dallas, Texas. So from the age of 13 or 14 years old, I've been involved in government, law, and politics for the last 40 years. And that's why me and Mel do this show. We talk about law, politics, and the weekly legal review, what's happening in America legally and what's happening in politics and government. We do this every Sunday, 6 p.m. Texas time, 7 p.m. New York time.
Thank you so much. Who can we nail the government shutdown to? Who's responsible?
I think it's kind of it's kind of interesting because the Republicans actually control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So they ought to be able to keep it open. So if you're going to control all three, you can't blame the other party. When you control all three houses, you should have a plan in place to be able to keep the government open when you control all three houses. So I would say it's the Republicans.
Tom just brought up the midterm elections. What do you think the midterm elections look like so far? You think the Republicans are going to hold steady, or do you think the Democrats are going to come back from behind?
I think they're going to come back from behind. You see a lot of things happening in Texas, even in Fort Worth, Texas, which has been red for the longest. You had somebody recently lose one of the House seats. You have a lot of places, especially in Texas, where they redrew these maps to favor the Republicans, but there was an understanding that they thought that the Hispanic voters were going to vote Republican, and now that's been flipped upside his head. So in Texas, in places like Texas in the Valley, and places like Austin, and the places like Brownsville, Laredo, and El Paso, the Hispanic community is really backlashing against the Republican Party in Texas. A lot of them voted Republican the last time, but they have completely changed. So I think when you look at a place like Texas with so many seats that are there, as well as other places across America where the Hispanics feel like they have been disenfranchised and they've been totally disrespected when it comes to the way that this immigration thing has played out. I think that the Republicans are going to stand to lose a lot of seats and a lot of power this upcoming election. I see a blue wave coming.
Okay. Jim is pouring it on thick. He says, so what, America first? What is wrong with that?
And there's nothing wrong with America first, but if it's America first, you're going into Venezuela, you're bombing Iran, and our gas prices are going up. I understand what you're saying, but you got people that are dying, and you got people that are suffering. You got people that are paying a lot more for gas across America right now. You got a lot of people that are going to pay a lot more for food across America right now. And at the same time, hey, I understand if you're you're a Republican and you love Mr. Trump, and it's the one great thing about America, you can love your particular political leader. But when folks can't pay their bills and prices are too high, or when a particular person or particular party starts to assume more power and take power away from the people, they're going to go, whether you like them or not. And that's just going to be part of it. And so we're going to have to deal with that. You just got to kind of deal with that in a sense.
Okay. The Gen X heretic says, represent the people, not the elites.
And see, that's the thing, too. We have a problem in the Democratic and Republican Party where the elites have been taken care of. And I'm not just going to call Republicans out for this. I'll call some of the Democrats out as well. Sometimes the Democrats have lost their ability, right, to make sure that they take care of the little voter, the factory worker, the union worker, the person that's just trying to buy a car, pay for their house. Yeah, and then when it comes to Republicans, a lot of people are saying right now, especially some of the Hispanic folks and some of the people in middle America is saying that, hey, this particular president is taking care of the oil companies and the oil prices and the big companies. And they forgot about us in middle America that don't have health insurance and can't get SNAP benefits. And so you got to start thinking about that. But right, fight for the people instead of the elites.
Okay. Grumpy is preaching from the political pews. He says, the world is America. What happens in the world affects us at home. America hasn't been a singular since the 1950s.
I definitely understand what you're saying, Grumpy. But at the same time, we got to be extremely careful about how we put our power out there. Like I told you, you can be a bully, but you got to also be careful while you're being a bully because you're going to trigger things in the world that are going to come back to affect regular Americans. So you just got to be extremely careful of how you use the power that we have. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, nice to have Baked Biscuit wants to come up and chat with us. We're going to open that up in about 10 to 15 minutes. Look forward to having you come up. I'll drop the link so you can come in. Tree Craft says, we are so cooked.
I think we are. And I think that one of the things, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for putting our citizens first, but we got to be extremely careful about how we do that because other countries are going to say, well, we're going to put ourselves first too. And so there are going to be certain reactions, there are going to be certain things that are going to happen that we're not going to get the grace and mercy that we used to get when certain things would happen. And so you got to be careful when you're the most powerful. When you got the biggest stick in the yard, sometimes you have to be careful how you use that stick. I mean, do you want to hurt somebody with it, or do you want to kill somebody with it, or do you want to use it to make people get in line? We got to be extremely careful about how we use our big stick.
We see a lot of people talking about TDS, Trump derangement syndrome? Is that a thing?
With some people, it might be. I think that the Democrats at times focus too much on what he is doing or what he's going to do as opposed to what they're going to be doing. And see, that's the things that I had conversations with folks about. If Trump is doing all of the bad stuff that you say he's doing bad, what are you going to do that's good? Tell us what your plan is. Tell us what you're going to do. Let us get to know you better and what you're going to do in terms of your actions. And I think that sometimes people can get a little too Trump focused. So I could say that some of that is probably true. But with that being said, when you have somebody like him who does a lot of the things that he does, hey, it can be very alarming when he does it. So I can definitely understand people getting kind of infatuated with him.
When I was asking you about the Democrats getting back on track, and you said looks like they're coming back pretty strong, AI Starseed pushed back. He says it will take years for the Democrats because they need therapy.
People can say whatever they want to say, but when you look at a place like Texas where they redrew all those maps, and I'm looking at places, I mean, I'm not going on feelings, I'm going on numbers. I mean, we've had people win elections down here in Texas in deep red areas. I'm talking about areas that went 17 to 20 points Trump last time, actually going 11 to 12 points Democrat this time. So, Texas is a great gauge of what's going to happen. And so we're going to see what's going to happen. I mean, we could disagree, but the proof will be in the pudding when this election comes up.
It looked like the Republicans played a ground game of ball, a good basketball strategy with Jasmine Crockett. They did the redistricting so that they could take her off of her square, then set her up where she had to go and try to become a part of the Senate, and that did not work. Have you ever seen that before?
I hadn't seen something like this before. What they did was kind of diabolical. But with that being said, I always try to tell people I know Jasmine personally, so I don't hide that from anybody. I just thought that because you have so many counties in Texas, people have to understand. In the state of Texas, there's over 250 counties in Texas. And Tallarico won 160 of them. And I think Crockett won 82. She won some of the bigger ones. But the problem that you have is in a statewide election in Texas, there's two ways to victory. You can try to get some function and some motion on all of the smaller counties. And with Jasmine, I just thought that in places like Dallas and Houston, where she runs strong, that you got to go stronger and harder in those areas. And unfortunately, in Houston, I think she won by like 30,000 votes. In Dallas, she won by like 40,000 votes. But I think that a safe amount for her to be able to compete in a statewide congressional race would require you to win by 70 or 80,000 in Dallas, at least 60 to 70,000 in Houston. That would be my projection in terms of being able to compete in Texas when you're a candidate like her, especially when you're getting 90% of the black vote. To me, I would have targeted a lot more of the black voters to get them out, because chances are if I get them out, they're going to vote for me. And I think what Tallarico did was extremely smart. He knew that his image would play extremely well in the smaller counties in Texas because he's like a PK, a preacher's kid. He's also has a seminary degree, if I'm correct. I have nothing against Mr. Tallarico. I think that he's a smart and energetic young man. And I think that he will do fine in this race against Paxton or Cornyn. But I also think that he was very smart in terms of the way he ran his campaign. I think one of the mistakes he made, though, he allowed some attack acts to go out against Miss Crockett. And I think that's going to hurt him with some of the African-American women in the Democratic Party. And that's a demographic that you do not want to offend. And so I think that's where he may have a little bit of a problem. But I think Jasmine has come out and said that we must come together and we must move forward in terms of defeating Greg Abbott, our governor, as well as the Senate candidates for the state of Texas, because we're sick of being oppressed down here.
So what could be next for Jasmine Crockett based on this scenario?
Well, there's also the core, in 2 years, Ted Cruz has to run again. So she could always decide to run for Senate versus Ted Cruz. And I think that she would probably have enough name recognition to gain that nomination. Or she could do something like run here in Dallas in one of those citywide elections for a political office in Dallas or greater Dallas County. I think that that's something that she could do, or she could just go back to practicing law. And I've talked to her a little bit. I'm not going to go and say what she's going to do, but she's leaving all of her options open to doing either one of those things.
Okay, Pretty Thing says at the end of the day, we have to find a way to all exist together in this country. We don't have to agree with each other's lifestyles in order to coexist.
I think
Beautiful said.
great way to approach everything. I just wish more people thought like you. And unfortunately, everybody is in their clique and their groups, and they don't understand that the rest of the world is laughing at us. And the sad part about this is whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, I sit back and I watch what's happening in America right now. And the other countries are sitting back. They're feasting on us. They're watching us eat ourselves from within. And that's the sad part about watching what's happening in America right now. But it's true. If we don't have any unity, or we're going to pay for it.
Okay, anyone interested in coming on the stage, you have to start the process of trying to come into the backstage now so that we can have you set up and ready to go in about 5 to 10 minutes. So thank you very much. For those that are watching on X, make sure you come over to YouTube and also subscribe to the channel Watching the World 777. We appreciate all of you. We're starting to get more movement on X. That's beautiful. Calvin, just take a moment to talk to the people.
First of all, I want to shout out to Marissa Fontaine. Thank you for liking what I'm trying to do. I try to be level-headed. I love this country. I've had a lot of my family members fight for this country. My grandfather helped build some of this stuff in factories. My uncle's a war hero. At the end of the day, I am an American, and I would love for us to be able to get along a lot better. And not fight each other to the point to where we, in a sense, like hating each other. So at the end of the day, I was hoping that we can do a better job of actually trying to get something done for this country, as opposed to just flat out dogfighting for every 4 years. With that being said, listen, I always try to tell people, me and Mel do this show. We try to be fair and balanced. I'm not going to come on and just go 2 hours and bash Trump for everything that he's doing or not doing. I try to be balanced and balanced and fair down the line. And at the end of the day, but I will tell the truth. I mean, if the president is trying to sell us a line of BS about prices going down, and I know I'm paying more for gas, then it's my job to tell you that. And if you're a big Trump fan, hey, that's great. You're welcome to come on this platform. But we're not going to just drink the juice because you think it tastes good. So we're going to tell the truth about it. But at the same time, if I see the Democrats do something wrong or I think they can do better, I'm going to talk about that too. They can get some of the smoke too. So I don't mind. But that's what we do here on this show. And we want as many people as possible to come up and engage in decent conversations with us, not just these lopsided, idol worship conversations that some of these people have on some of these other platforms.
All right, beautiful. Purple Groovy really drives the nail home. Says the new propaganda is not about convincing people to believe in lies, but to doubt the possibility of truth.
Man, oh my goodness. I mean,
Powerful.
Groovy, Purple Groovy in the 69, you hit it on the head. A lot of us can lose the ability to think that the truth can actually get out. A lot of us can lose hope that we can actually get fair, level-headed people to be involved in the political process, that we can get fair, level-headed people to engage in government, and you cannot give up on that. We have to have somebody that's strong enough to have a middle ground, and we got to quit blaming everything on Trump and Obama and everybody else. At the end of the day, we're Americans. At the end of the day, we got to participate in all the processes that make our country. And we need to try to, at some point, learn to deal with each other civilly, as opposed to just going to war every 4 years, trying to beat each other's heads in. Uh, if we do that to each other, the other countries in the world win, and we don't.
Okay, Mr. How Hot says, why is the American government paying healthcare companies under Obamacare then?
What I try to tell people, that is a very, very complicated situation. It's not something that's simple. Let's quit trying to make something simple when it comes to healthcare in America. We know that a lot of these companies, they operate and they're trying to maximize their profits. We know that in places like Canada and Germany and some of the other places, that healthcare is a lot more cheaper because they don't allow their governments to get gouged like the American government. So let's be honest about what's happening. It's not something that can be handled simply and that can be solved easily.
Okay, ABD says, did you guys speak about Diddy appeal? Diddy, his appeal is coming up on April the 8th or the 9th, I believe. What do you think in regards to that? What is this going to look like?
I just don't think that that is going to go well for him. I don't think that it's going to change anything. I think when you look at it, he actually got off pretty light considering some of the charges that he was facing. I just think with everything that's involved, and I think because of what has happened in the past and what federal judges have allowed in the past to be introduced as evidence, I think that they're going to pretty much stick to the ruling that they had in terms of his sentence. And I think that he's going to be stuck with what he's stuck with. However, I don't think he has that much time to do. I think based on him getting the 51 months, he'd already served 13. How long ago was the verdict, Mel?
About 6 months ago.
Months ago. So now at this point, he has about 20 to 21 months of back time. He literally got 51 months, which is basically 50 months, which is basically 4 years and 2 months. And he's already served at this point, getting close to serving 2 years with the little discounts for taking programs in there. He could probably be home within a year or less. And so I think about a year less, he could probably be home with the programs and doing 85% of his time. So I think that he might just needs to do that year, get out, move on with his life. I don't know if that appeal is going to go well for him.
Okay. Grumpy says, I'm not worried about gas prices. I live in a blue state and gas prices are always high.
Mm-hmm. I get that, but when you use a lot of gas, I know a lot of guys that are truck drivers, places like Texas, that stuff matters. We drive all over the state. People have to understand, right? When I say we have more than 250 counties, there are points in Texas where you can drive 12 straight hours and still be in the state. I had friends that I went to college with that would drive all the way to El Paso. And if they drove there nonstop, it still would take them 10 hours and 30 minutes to get from Brownwood, which is middle Texas, all the way to El Paso, far El Paso, where they were from. So gas in a state like Texas is very important. So it may not be important to you, but it's important to a lot.
Okay, guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Baked Biscuit, feel free to come in and join this discussion. I put the link in the chat for you. Baked Biscuit says, I would be included to agree with you about the Democrats winning the next term, except for the fact that Trump is making sure voter ID and proof of citizenship screws the left.
I think he's going to try to do that, but like I said, the Democratic Party should have saw that coming. And when people talk about no more illegal voters, let's be honest, he's doing that to shrink the voter pool because he's afraid that people have not approved of his policies. He's involved in a very, 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 very questionable war. We're not doing as well as we say we're doing. And when you get into those Middle East conflicts, there's no quick and easy way out. Those folks are going to fight. So when you look at that, I think that the Republicans are going to have some problems. And when you start jacking around with people's ability to be able to vote, people start realizing what you're doing. You're taking away voting rights. You're killing free speech. You're trying to make sure that people get in line with the way you think all of the time. And so America knows that. The independents in America know that. And I think that Trump is going to have some problems because the Democratic turnout is high. Hispanic turnout is going to be high. I think African American turnout is going to be high to be able to try to fight up against some of the things that Mr. Trump has been doing lately.
Okay, very good. Tom wrote a pretty good comment here. Could you address that?
The Democrats are finding in the long run, they are rubbing their hands on Iran terrible wars and extending power. Caveat: Trump could be one of the greatest presidents if he gets Iran resolved. If he gets Iran resolved, that would be great. I just don't know if he's going to resolve it. Those folks are different. I joked with Mel and I said, our soldiers will say, "I'm going to kill you," and what their soldiers are going to say, "No, I'm going to kill both of us." And so when you think about it, they're willing to die. They're willing to blow themselves up to smithereens to protect their way of life and to protect their religion and protect their country. And I think that I'm not saying we're not willing to die, but they're willing to actually blow themselves up to do so. So you're dealing with that kind of thing. And I think that you have to be extremely careful when you start thinking that you're going to be able to go on or go into Iran and resolve that conflict. Like I said, think about it. They took hostages because of what happened with the Shah. That stuff goes way back when I gave y'all the history lesson earlier. So think about that.
Okay. Purple Groovy says Trump being president is like throwing yourself down a never ending flight of stairs.
Oh boy. Pretty interesting. You know, I tell somebody, said they were talking about Greg Abbott and him being the governor of Texas. And of course, he's in a wheelchair as well. And so people talk about pushing him down the stairwell. So because they're just so sick of his policies. And I'm not saying that you do that. With that being said, I'm just joking around. But at the same time, that's how some people feel, like you're falling down a never ending stairwell. Or that you're in a situation where you just want to get away um, from what he is doing on a daily basis in America, and his unpredictability as a leader has caused a number of people to have angst about him continuing to be president.
Okay. Tom says, message there, Texas.
Tallarico is going to lose. Cornyn is going to win. That's if Cornyn gets past Crooked Paxton, Crooked Ken Paxton. So Ken Paxton is actually his opponent. And to help you understand how crooked Ken Paxton is, he's the attorney general. And he was using government funds to be able to sneak away to cheat on his wife with a lady across town and got caught. He also got caught for some insider trading and dealing. And he also got caught protecting one of his biggest donors from a Texas investigation. So Mr. Cornyn is actually running against Mr. Paxton right now, and Cornyn is behind that guy. So the guy he's talking to me about is behind the crooked guy. So we got to be careful. I think if Tallarico can get his voters out, I think he has a chance. But if you're not from Texas, you wouldn't understand.
Okay. Tom basically says that Jasmine Crockett should go to Sarah Palin route, basically become a social media reality TV star and all that, go work at MS Now.
She could do that. She could very well do that. She has a bright future. Like I said, I've talked to her before. I worked with her before when she represented my district that I live in, and went back to some of the old communities that I grew up in. She did a great job there. And so I don't have anything against her. I wish her the best. And I think that she has a bright future ahead of herself. So I'm wishing her the best in whatever she decides to do next.
Okay. ABD says, you haven't read the brief. The former sentencing commissioner sent amicus brief explaining it's illegal.
I understand what you're saying. I haven't read the brief, but I would imagine somebody like myself that has been doing this for 24 years, of course, they're going to say that that sentence is illegal. Of course, they're going to say that there were some things that the judge allowed, and some of the information that the judge allowed in this particular case to actually get in terms of deciding how to punish Mr. Puffy, Mr. P. Diddy, Mr. Combs. But I'm going to tell you, based on what I know and based on the fact that I've been to federal court, I don't see Mr. Combs winning this appeal. And I will mind you, so that you understand who I am. I'm the guy who guessed exactly damn near about how many months Mr. Combs was going to get when everybody else was telling me all this other stuff. I was within 1 month of being right. So I had a big scan of, anywhere from 0 months all the way to up to over 100 months. And I guessed it properly. So I think I understand what's going on here. I think I understand federal court. I understand the law and understand sentencing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to actually be involved in a federal sentencing in about a month from now for one of my clients. So I go to court every day. I practice in federal court. So I just don't think that he is going to win this appeal.
Okay, very good. So, for those of you who are just checking in, when it came to Sean Diddy Combs' trial, which his appeal is coming up, I would go to court every day, sit through the process for 9 long weeks, including jury selection. And on Sunday, I would come back and just describe to Calvin, this is what the jury looked like. This is what Diddy was doing. This is how he walked in. This is what the judge said. And not even having gone to the courthouse, Calvin was able to process, take all the information that I gave him from my experience, and he was able to peg down the exact time that Diddy was sentenced. That's amazing.
And it's because I understand what happens in federal court. I understand the law. I understand what's allowed and what's not allowed. I understand how some of these judges look forward, how they look at certain kinds of behaviors. And I also look at mannerisms and certain things that they do and how they do them and how they say them. You know, when you do this for over 2 decades, run it up on 3 decades, what you're paying for when you hire me is the ability to pick up on things that nobody else can. And so at the end of the day, I'm able to do that. I do a good job of that. And I try to be fair and honest about my assessments. And working with Mel, he went to the trial every day. He shared as much as he could with me. And I was able to basically predict to the month how much time Sean Diddy Combs was going to get. I was literally off by 1 month, which was pretty damn good.
That's amazing. Marissa says, I was a child during the Iranian hostage crisis. It was awful. I was a Catholic school, and we prayed for them every day and kept track of how many days they were there.
It was horrible, especially for those hostages. I feel sorry for those families. I think they got caught up in some geopolitics and of course Iran did something by taking the hostages, which I didn't think was the right thing to do. But also on the other end, I kind of am a student of history, and so I understand how everything happened. And a lot of people, when I discussed that with us, I think even as we were younger, nobody told us why they took the hostages, that they just took them and we didn't understand the whole backstory of what America and Britain had been doing to Iran. They didn't give you the backstory about the Shah. They didn't give you backstory about we installed the Shah as their leader, and then when they tried to overthrow him and were going to jail him, that we went and swooped him up and brought him to America and away from them, and we wanted to continue to exploit them. And with that being said, you know that's one of the things where in today's world, we're able to talk freely about that. But what was happening when they took the hostages, nobody had the knowledge of the full story of everything that was happening because the presidents then could control the media, unlike the presidents now. So, and then they control the narrative a lot better then. But like I said, for those families, I hated that they ended up in that position. I hate that they ended up getting taken and that they went through what they went through. War is a very serious thing. I always tell people my uncle was a Vietnam vet, and just watching him after he came back home, he was never the same again.
Okay, all right. So we're down to our last 15 minutes. I figure we'll switch up and talk about a few other things before we're out of here. Nancy Guthrie, it seems that the last of the Mohegans of the media is packing up and leaving. What do you think went wrong with this particular case as far as them not being able to solve it quickly?
I think that in the first 48 hours, maybe they didn't get the leads that they needed to get. And I think when you don't get those leads early, and then when they dry up and time passes, then you got everybody in the country looking for her, and you don't get those good leads in the first 48 hours. That's why they call it the first 48. That's why they call that show the first 48. You get most of your clues in the first 48 hours, and the first 48 hours is very important to get leads because if you don't, the farther away it gets away from that 48 hours, the worse it's going to get. And unfortunately, there's been no new news. There's been no new leads, no new ransom demands. And I would imagine that those people who took her are probably scared at this point to actually pop up with her if they still have her. And so, unfortunately, I think the worst is probably happened right now, even though I'm wishing for the best for that family.
You know what's really strange to me? It appears that the person or persons came through the front door. This week it came out in the news that there were several cameras around back, and guess what? They were motion censored cameras, and
Mm.
there's no footage from that night, but there is footage prior to that night and also footage after. So it seems that someone came in through the front door, although the officers are not confirming it.
And see, that's what I think probably happened, and that's the unfortunate part. I feel bad for Miss Guthrie. I just feel like somebody of her ilk, when your daughter probably makes 15, $20 million, $10 million on a show like what Good Morning America. That's what she's on. Is that correct?
Today's
Okay,
show.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Mhm.
thinking about Good Morning America. That's when I was. But the Today Show, when you're on Today Show, is a very popular morning show. You got to know that your family could be target to ransom. And I just think that when you got somebody like her, you don't let her live to where people can just walk up to their front door. I tell people all the time um, that sometimes you have to have controlled environments, additional gates, additional security. You gotta protect your loved ones a lot better. And when you're somebody that's famous, you just can't live anywhere and just have anybody in your house and or have people being able to walk up on you. That's a dangerous situation, especially for somebody that's her age.
You know, a lot has come out over the last week. One of the things that's striking to me is that they went back and they found video, I believe, from like 2013.
Hmm.
And there's videos of the mother in the home making her bed. And to think about the fact that that's how she was taken right from her bed.
Hmm.
When people have such a big public persona, should they stay away from sharing personal information?
I think you got to be careful. I think I went to one of my friend's house that lives in Beverly Hills that I do some business with, and we took a picture. And I made sure that I took a picture and that I did not show his address. And the reason why you do that is because um, when you go to somebody's home and they're wealthy and they got a lot of stuff, I think when you're well-to-do or you have well-to-do relatives, you have to be extremely careful about sharing your information about people knowing where you live. Like recently, Rihanna's house got shot in, and you would imagine they probably took on the tour. That's where Rihanna lives over there, and you got to be careful. You can't let everybody know where you lay your head, especially some of these stars. I mean, you got to think about that stuff nowadays, and you got to be careful.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. If she has on her front door, talking about Nancy Guthrie, she has a deadbolt and she had a key lock at the front door, how would someone get through that without scratching the door or showing any signs of forced entry?
To me, it would have to be somebody that she knew or somebody that she felt she was comfortable with opening the door for, and we just don't know what happened. But with that being said, you still just got to make sure that everybody doesn't have access to her, that everybody's vetted, and that there's several layers of security between her and somebody actually snatching her. And that's the sad part about it. You know, there's reasons why I know certain people live in gated communities. You know, I went out to Athlete's house not too long ago. I think I was telling you, Mel, gated community. I understand why. I look at the houses in that community. You could tell they got cameras everywhere. You're not going to be able to run up and down. You got to go through the gate, and then you got to get through another gate to actually walk into his house. And I definitely understand why, because you got to be careful. You can't let everybody know where you live. And when you got somebody like that, that's an elderly lady, of a mother of somebody that runs the Today Show or is a major part of that show, you just got to be extremely careful.
Right, exactly. Could you address the comment here, getting back to Diddy?
There was a 2024 sentencing guideline amendment that Diddy is saying the judge ignored. Before the 2024 amendment, Calvin would be right. The former sentencing commissioner said it was illegal. And I get what people are saying. But what happens is what they allow the federal judges to do, they give them a lot more leeway nowadays, right? So they can take leeway to go up or they can take leeway to go down. And Mr. Diddy's particular situation, they didn't allow everything that the state wanted in terms of enhancing him, but they did allow for some of the things to be in that particular sentencing range and memorandum to stay. And so I think that people have to understand that the sentencing guidelines themselves are what they would call advisory. They're not 100% foolproof. So you can have a situation upon which somebody's supposed to get 180 months, but the judge says, no, I'm going to give them 90. So you have to realize that a lot of these judges have a lot of leeway to do what they want in some situations. And, I got a case where I'm going to be going to federal court, and I'm not going to lie, my guy's sentencing guidelines are like at the top of the top of the top of the top of the top, because he had like 7 or 8 or 9 convictions before now, and all of them accumulated points to the point to where his sentencing would be off the chart. But everybody else that's involved in the conspiracy is getting about 18 years or less. And his sentencing guidelines grade out to like 38, 39, 40 years, honestly, 30 plus based on what his priors were and the amount of points he has. But the government is actually asking for 15 years as opposed to the 37 that he probably would be eligible to get. And then the judge has a lot of leeway to actually decide to do that, as opposed to using the guidelines that are there. And there are various reasons upon which judges decide that there are other mitigating factors that they can use to show that this Mr. Combs should get this amount, or that these particular things should be allowed. And I think that everybody needs to understand that the sentencing guidelines are not just set to be followed in stone. They're guidelines, but they're advisory. They're not to the point to where you can go over them or under them. You can do that depending on what the situation is.
In the case of Sean Diddy Combs, everybody was basically floored because his defense team decided they would not perform a defense at all. In fact, they said that they had defended him during the direct when the prosecution were actually putting on their whole opposition. Is that normal?
Sometimes it is normal. I think that was actually smart, because I think that the government's case I thought was kind of weak on a lot of the felonies. I thought that they were weak on some of their stuff. And I think that what they probably thought is putting Mr. Combs up there would only put him in danger, based on some of the information that the other side had and some of the things that they probably didn't get in that they probably should have gotten in. I think this defense team did a great job in this case to be able to get him just to beat a lot of those charges. He got charged with all of these felonies and he only got hit with 2 misdemeanors. He was charged with several felonies. He didn't get a whole lot of time. He'll literally be getting out within a year from now. So I think the defense team in this situation did a great job to avoid a lot of time for Mr. Combs. And I think that they did a great job deciding not to call him to the stand. And in certain situations, you don't want your client on the stand.
So, in regards to the appeal, what should we expect attending it? Is it going to be 2 weeks, 3 days? How does these federal appeals work?
Sometimes most of the times they'll do the writings and argument, but they'll allow oral arguments to be heard. I would imagine it may take a day or two. I don't think it's going to take much more than that. It's not going to go more than 2 days. It usually can be done within a day, but it's going to probably take a couple of days maximum. And then they're going to come out with a decision after the fact once they hear all the arguments. But I envision that the sentencing is going to be sustained. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be completely right, but I think I had enough gauge and enough leeway here to know kind of what's going on. I think they're probably going to sustain the sentence and leave it as it is. But I think with that being said, Mr. Combs will be home pretty soon anyway, probably within a year.
Toward the end of Sean Diddy Combs' trial, they were trying to build the argument that he had such great means that he was able to create porn in his own bedroom, basically. But they didn't start off in the opening arguments about that. So much so that when the first sex worker walked in, people were like, why is a man a sex worker? So do you think that was a flaw on the defense side?
It's on the prosecution side, you mean?
No, on the defense side, by not introducing that he was creating porn from the beginning of the trial, they waited to the end to try to sell that narrative too late.
I don't think that was it. I think you don't want to focus on that because I think I think that would have led to a lot more Cassie conversations. I think a lot of that, and I think you want to stay away from that. I think anything involving Cassie, if you can avoid it, you need to stay away from, because when he tried to kick her head like a football, that endeavor to bring that back in. So sometimes when defense attorneys don't do certain things, people question it. And then I actually did a jury trial where I could not ask certain questions. I asked very little of my client because we knew he was going to get convicted. But the problem that he had was, if I asked questions, it was going to lead to other problems for him, like potentially more charges later, or potentially them wanting to give him more time when it got to sentencing. And so there are certain situations where you can't defend as hard as you want to, because some of the boxes you're going to open up are going to create additional problems for you and your client.
Okay. The last question I have, or discussion, we have 5 minutes left. I covered Donald Trump's trial where he eventually received 34 felonies. Do you think that uh, that was more of a setup? Because many people are saying it seemed like a Democratic jury. In fact, three of the individuals were attorneys, but in these typical other trials, such as Diddy, the Alexander brothers, and also Luigi Mangione, we're not seeing even one attorney on the jury. So, could you help us understand?
I think that was somewhat politically charged, but I think some of it was legitimate. But they put such a political spin on it that a lot of America did not take those felony convictions as being serious ones. I think that when you're asking people to delegitimize an election, when you're calling people, pressuring them to vote, to count certain votes, and you're doing certain things, I think that's a problem. But also, I think Donald Trump's business issues in terms of his valuations of his properties, the way he got loans, the way he would overvalue when trying to borrow money and then undervalue when paying taxes on them, and doing some of the financial trickiness he was doing. I think people knew that he had done that for years, but I think some people looked at that as, hey, a lot of people game the system that way, right? And people will teach other people to game the system that way. So I think that a lot of it was politically motivated, but at the same time, I don't think that Mr. Trump was doing something that maybe a lot of other people were not doing in terms of getting those loans and handling his business that way. So I think that America looked at some of those convictions as not as straight convictions. I think they looked at some of that as being politically motivated, even though I think that they're valid. I think you cannot do what he was doing. I think people were probably saying he wouldn't have been charged unless he was Mr. Trump. And so that's not something I felt about that.
So, here's my final question for you. President Trump, let's say, for instance, a lot of people are saying, oh, the guy did this, he made these mistakes in life. Do we really care about the personal life of the president, what he eats at McDonald's and all of this stuff? Or is the prime concern that he runs the country effectively?
I think for the most part, you want him to run the country effectively. But the problem,
And we just lost you. Calvin, if you can hear me, you would have to go out and come back in probably. Okay, so we're going to have Calvin go out and come back in. We seem to have just lost him for a moment. Yes, so he's just left. All right, so we thank you guys for tuning in today. If you could hit the like button, share, subscribe. We're waiting for Calvin to come back in, but we covered a lot of ground tonight. If you have any last minute questions, I would advise you to put it in the chat now so that when he comes back on for these last few minutes, you could have your legal question answered. This is a great moment because it's not every day we get a chance to have a criminal defense attorney answer questions. Okay, here we go. We can't hear you, Calvin. Can't hear you. We
how
can't
about
hear
now?
you. Okay, great.
And what was you going to ask me again?
I think basically we were talking about the president. If he's performing at a high level and he's leading the country, he handles war, Iran, he's making those type of high level decisions. Do we care what he does in his personal life or what kind of Big Mac he likes?
I don't think we should care about a lot of that stuff. You should care about how somebody governs. But with that being said, there are character traits of individuals that we got to pay attention to. Does he treat people fairly? Does he discriminate against people? Does he pay his bills? Does he do what he says he's going to do in business and in his personal life? Some of those traits carry over to what kind of president that you're going to be. And I think it's very, very important that we get somebody who has some integrity, who pays his bills, who keeps his word. If he's doing some of those things privately, typically he's going to do some of those things while he's being president. And so if people are not uh, good character privately, you have to look at some of that closely. But I think that more people are concerned about what he would do as president.
Okay, Purple Groovy says Trump will burn down the nation just to rule over the ashes.
And you know what? That could very well be true. That's the problem. When he goes into a direction, even if it's not looking good, he will double, triple, or quadruple down. And sometimes that can be even to his own detriment. So I definitely understand what you're saying. And a lot of us would not disagree with that.
Okay, do you ever see a point where the Republicans and the Democrats can come together and soothe the divide?
I don't. I think this country has been divided too far left and too far right. I wish that could happen. I just don't have confidence in that actually happening. I would love for it to happen because I think that America would benefit from it. It would take I hate to say it, something catastrophic to happen in this country for us to come together. And even then, I'm not sure if one side would be blaming the other in that situation as well. And that's the sad part about all of this. I just don't know moving forward if we can actually come together and actually govern instead of just fighting each other every 4 years.
Okay, back around the 70s, my favorite artist of all time, Marvin Gaye, said something like, Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. War is not the answer. For only love can conquer hate. What do you think?
I agree with Mr. Marvin Gaye, but it seems like we're stuck in time. When you think about it, he said that almost 50 years ago. And right now, we're still dealing with the same problems. What's going on? I remember him making songs, Marvin Gaye making songs to that effect. I remember Donny Hathaway making songs to that effect. And I could sit back and listen to their music today and still feel like I'm in the 70s and still feel like we got the same problems. And that's the whole part of it all that I'm disappointed about. If I ever run for office again, I'll try to be somebody who just really wants to serve the community, whether it be left or right. I will try to do the best for this community and this country because I'm still proud of it, despite all of its warts and all of its problems. And I hope that Mel, you and I doing this show, that we can actually have people come on and actually have productive discussions without tearing each other down.
Okay, Pretty Ting says all it takes for America to unite is for to have a president that can try to unite the people.
I think that that's what we're going to need. I just don't think that we have that now. And people can say what they want to say, but Mr. Trump seems to be going hard on the people who did not vote for him, who don't feel the way he feels. It almost seems like he could care less about what happens to them.
Lisa says, I refuse to unite with Nazis.
And that's part of it too as well. When you have somebody who you feel like and you know and you've seen him supporting some of the stuff that's on the far right, you can't unite with somebody like that.
Okay, Grumpy says, can't blame all your problems on one man, and you can't put all your hopes for one man to fix all of your problems.
I tell people this all the time. Trump is not just the only reason why we're having these problems. He's a symbol of the problems. Just removing him as president is not going to fix America's problems.
Okay.
Americans, each one of us, doing the right thing to fix our problems. It's on us. You can't always ask leadership to do it. Leadership can be part of it, but it's going to take strong leadership and strong day-to-day behaviors by our American citizens to actually bring this thing back together and have to have some progress.
Okay, we'll close out with Purple Groovy. Purple Groovy says a simple truth. We will never have today again. Good point. Calvin, would you like to close us out?
Yes, I would.
Week?
I would tell people this. First of all, once again, thank you for tuning in to our show. Once again, we try to be fair and balanced, but I am not encouraged about what's happening in our country right now. We're more divided than ever. We're in a war that I don't think is going to benefit us. I don't think we're in a war right now that's going to end quickly, and I think it's going to cause more problems than it's going to solve. And I'm going to be honest with saying that today I'm making these comments against the current performance of President Donald Trump. But if a Democrat would do the same thing, I would say the same thing about them. I'm really about this country progressing. I would love to see some peace in this country. I would love to see us continue to work together so we can be a greater country. If we don't do that, it's not going to change. And once again, I said this: removing Trump for president is not going to solve all your problems. You're still going to have some of the same problems that you had when you had him there. America has deep-seated inner problems that they need to start dealing with. And each one of us are going to have to be honest and open to deal with our problems, because they're not going to go away by electing a different president that you agree with or getting rid of Mr. Trump. He's just a symbol of what's happening in America right now, the good and the bad. And we have to take a look in the mirror and look at ourselves, see what we're teaching our kids, and seeing how we react and how we're treating. And until we do a better job of treating each other, this country will not progress. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Please take to heart what I said tonight. We're going to see you next week, 6 p.m. Texas time, 7 p.m. New York time. Signing out. Take care.
Different voices, but the same song. Building a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the theme remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.